No. We can't minister effectively because we are spiritually imbalanced. Concentrating on the image of a Christian and not on the quality of a believer. We spend so much time worrying about our suits and our Bibles and making sure we sound the right way and we look the right way and we have all of the rank and all of the image that we stop remembering that we were supposed to be building something internal. And then when mold starts to show on the outside, we forgot that it already had to start on the inside. And Christians and non-Christians see this fake persona. Our society is extremely sensitive to what's not genuine and what is genuine. There was a rap song in 2009 that simply said, he's phony, she's fake. That's the type of people I hate. Point them out. Point them out. Point them out. If you really know it, clap your hands. If we are to be healthy and effective, then we need to know what are we carrying. We can't keep buying fake images for appearance. We need to be honest with what we have. Now, there is no way that I can go through all of the areas that we need work on. One, because I don't have time. Two, because I also need help as well. But we can look at my man David, who was very clear as to what he was carrying. I know, that sounds weird. An explanation is necessary. Here is the summary of David and Goliath for those who don't know. David was considered a giant soldier of an enemy army called the Philistines. And all the Israelites were scared of fighting this one giant. He taunted them every day, over and over again. Send me someone to fight. Eventually, David, who happened to be the youngest of four brothers, who was the only one who was not a soldier, he was a shepherd, ends up going to the field to deliver some things to his brothers, and he hears this man taunting him. He starts asking questions because he's upset at what he hears the man saying. And his brother tells him, why are you here? You need to go away. You're just here to be nosy. And he chastises him. David ignores him and keeps asking questions. He finally realizes what the reward is. He realizes all of the riches and that you'll be able to marry the king's daughter and all of that stuff. So he decides, Saul hears it, King Saul hears it, and brings David to him to ask about why is he inquiring so much. And David just simply tells him, listen, I'll fight the giant. Saul doesn't believe him. David says, listen, I have had to take back sheep from lions and bears. I've had to kill them, and the same God that delivered me from the lion and the bear will deliver me from the giant. Saul doesn't have an argument anymore. He tries to put his armor on David to send him out to war, but the armor is already too big. David doesn't know how to use it. David takes off the armor. He grabs his shepherd's staff. He grabs his sling. He grabs his shepherd's bag. He grabs 5 stones out of the river. He goes to war. And the rest of the story is all just flat out legend. He runs up to this giant, puts the stone in the sling, beams it right on his head. Goliath goes down. David runs over, grabs the giant's sword, cuts his head off. David wins the battle. That's the story. Let's look at 3 points. Number 1, dismiss the doubters. Number 2, forget the faking. And number 3, pack your couch. What are you carrying? Number 1, dismiss the doubters. The first thing that David shows us about being real is to dismiss the doubters. Not to get mad at them, but to disregard them. In order to do this, you have to first understand what everybody else sees in you. David knew that he was only a boy. David knew how big Goliath was. David knew that everyone else was afraid of Goliath. David knew that he was not a soldier. David knew that he was just a young shepherd boy. And David had to know how big the undertaking was because of the reward that King Saul was offering. So when he, as the youngest of 4 brothers, hears the older brother getting mad at him, even about asking about what's going on, he responds kind of like a little brother. He pretty much says, well, I can't even ask questions. I'm just asking questions. And he turns and he keeps on asking about what's going on. He dismissed his brother as a doubter. Because although he knew all the reasons why his brother and others wouldn't believe that he could accomplish such a task, David also knew something else. David knew what he told the king when the king didn't believe him either. David knew that when the lions and bears came and took one of his sheep, that he went after it and he struck it and took the sheep back. And when the lion or the bear turned on him, he grabbed it by the hair on his chin and he killed it. And the God that let him conquer the lion and the God that let him conquer the bear would also give him the power to conquer Goliath. Listen, we must do the same. If we are going to live in God's will and be conscious of what we're carrying so we're not holding on to anything fake just for image, then we have to reach. If we want to reach the people that we are supposed to reach and do the work that we are supposed to do and minister the way that we should and overcome the way that we believe we can and have the presence of God with you the way that we hear people talk about, and yes, live a life in favor of God, then we have to learn to dismiss the doubters when it comes to what we can do in God. Because if you listen to them, you will only do one of two things. Number one, you will give up trying to live in God's will. Or you will become a bootleg Christian so you look like something that you're not just so they leave you alone. I've met too many people who try to look like Christians just so people stop asking them about why they don't look like Christians. I've met enough people who have gone out and spent money they shouldn't spend on suits and dresses that they didn't need just so people could stop talking to them like they're not saved. I've learned that people who doubt me because I don't seem to them like I can move mountains with my faith are probably bootleg Christians themselves. That person who doesn't believe that God can do through you, that person who doesn't seem to believe that God can work that way, that person who thinks that they are the only one who God can work through and not you, probably think that way because they haven't seen God work in their own life the way that you expect him to work in yours. And if God never worked that way for them to pull them out of the gutter of their lives, then how did they end up so holy in the first place? See, some of us are coming up the rough side of the mountain, and some of us are not. So you must be a bootleg Christian. So dismiss them and continue on your path. With all the people looking for God to show up in their families and their job and work and health and relationships, you don't need to listen to anybody who hasn't experienced what God can do for themselves. Or worse, forgot what God can do. Think about the lions that you defeated. Think about the bears that you've overcome. Think about the fact that God got you through that. That's the same God that will get you through the next thing. And whoever thinks that you're not refined enough, or seasoned enough, or learned enough, or tactful enough, you can dismiss. That's right. Now, you can keep and use constructive criticism. Right. But don't confuse the two. You need